Hello and welcome to Did You Say That Out Loud? This is Marette and I'll be spending a few minutes with friends and we're going to chat about life and kids and friends and travel and crazy topics and a few memories. So I can guarantee that you will laugh and you may learn a few things about what brings people together and what keeps them connected in their relationships and their faith walk. Hope you enjoy. Well, good morning. I am sitting in Kay's kitchen. Kay, I have known you for a long time. And
Very
I don't
true, very
I don't know how long it's been, but you were Jim's mom's really good friend.
Oh, I love Mary Jorgensen.
And I never really knew her.
She was such a hoot. When she would laugh, everybody else would laugh too, because it was this big whoop and laugh, and everybody just enjoyed being around her. And she was an organizer. She was a leader with a capital L.
So she was Lori, or Lori was her.
Yes, Lori is...
Which is Jim's sister.
Is like Mary the Second.
And I have two girls. And
yes, you do.
And they do resemble the grandmother they never knew. Because Adley is like that. But Bailey is this, she's built like Grandma Mary. She has the laugh.
Yes.
She does. I mean, so they both
Yes.
do. So I have known you ever since we've been married, but probably a little before that. But you are a single child.
I still am.
You still am. That's true. You still am. So there's got to be positives and negatives about being a single child. You have no option. Of course, there was 6 of us in the family. So single family there's everybody all over. So what was one kind of neat thing about being an only child?
Well, everything in the house, all the toys were yours.
Okay.
You didn't have to share. I could go off in the corner. All my life I've been reading. I sort of like to be by myself, being an only child, I suppose. So I noticed looking through some old pictures this last year that many of the pictures my dad would take of me was me lounging on some sort of a chair or a couch reading a book. And I guess that's what you do when you have to make your own entertainment. And I would never be interrupted in my reading.
That's true.
Because, and there was no one to fight with in the car over the back seat.
That's true.
That's very true.
That's very true. You didn't have to draw imaginary lines in your bedroom?
No, like my 2 boys did, yeah. And everybody else, I know, so that whenever we would go on a trip, I was born in Texas, my mother was a Texan, and my dad met her down there. We would go down, and I liked comic books at that time.
Ooh.
Big Disney fan. And so I would get 10 comic books that they would keep under the seat for going and coming, and they would dole them out.
Oh, my.
And so it was a big deal.
So is there anything that, other than you didn't have anybody to fight with, that being a single child or an only child wasn't, you wished you could change?
Well, I guess the usual thing people would say, and it was true for me also, it could get lonely. Mm-hmm. And you're always looking for someone to play with when you didn't want to read your book, So I would go out and have a good time with the kids in the neighborhood. I grew up in Minneapolis, so there were neighbors close by, not like if I lived on the farm like you did. But of course you had family, brothers and sisters.
Always somebody to bother you, get in
Yes.
trouble with you.
Yes.
So my first memory of you, I guess, would not be of you, but would be of Chuck, because we were farmers. And in our small community, there was this thing called Bishop and Wacholtz.
Yes.
And Chuck was the bishop.
Yes.
So a couple really cool things about being an implement dealer in a small town. I used to remember the customer appreciation days out there and the flippin' pancakes.
Oh, my land.
The flippin'
Yes.
pancakes.
Yes, I remember Marlene and I working on those together, and the first things we started, one year we had wieners and beans. We would chop it up in there. And then chips and cookies, and then of course Chris's cakes.
Yes.
We decided to
Let's
hire
establish
them.
though the color. So when Adley told Jim she was dating Brock, Jim's question to her was, what color? Because he was a farmer. So what color? We better get the color right first.
Well, Big Red.
Big Red, Case IH.
Yes. It was International Harvester when we bought
Okay.
the business. And
When
then
was that?
eventually, let's see. When we had Mark in 1967, he was born. So it was 1968.
Okay.
We moved here to Casson.
And I think Jim was telling me, and of course you know the facts, when did you move out to the Ford dealership? Because you used to be downtown somewhere. Or not downtown, but...
Yes, that's where we had a lot of the appreciation days jammed in there. And that it was there the minute we moved in. That was the building we had. So then we moved out to the Ford dealership. Do you know? I cannot recall.
Because I kind of remember some of that. I was little. Of course, I was born in the 50s, so... but Chuck was a regular at our farm, either checking something out or...
So I think the boys were still in high school. You know, we still had it then. And then after that, when Ford built the building out there and they just didn't survive, we needed the space. Because, there we were on that little lot.
Little tiny corner lot.
Yes, and so we were over by the post office. We owned that land and here and there. And we were having our machines all over town, and it was getting ridiculous, and there wasn't room enough for the guys out working in repairs.
And the equipment was getting bigger.
Oh yeah.
I grew up
So
with 620, 720 narrow-wheeled little John Deeres,
Yeah.
and now the things that Jim drives. I mean, the big. I don't even know what number it is, but it's a four-wheeler and it's huge. I mean, it could drive over that little 720.
It is huge, yeah. And you're mentioning all these numbers. Well, being the city girl, when I moved here, I hardly knew a tractor from a combine. So
Lots
and
of
then
education.
People say, "Oh, well, I bet you were down there helping Chuck. You were working at the dealership." And no, I have to say no. Really, I wouldn't have any skills down there to be able to help them. And we had a great bookkeeper anyway, in Ruthie, so they sure didn't need me down there.
Yeah, and our son-in-law is mostly green, which would be John Deere. So we go out to the case dealer and we get calendars and we take down to him and we buy the little boy.
And do you go and eat the food when they have the open houses there?
Even
though you're green?
Even though we buy a lot. We're more red than green. We are much more red than green.
Good.
We have red combine, red big side. Yeah, we have I think we only have 2 green now, maybe only 1. And then Jim bought me
wonderful.
a couple years ago a Mahindra.
Oh yeah, they sell that down there
and
now.
That's a little
the
tiny
dealership.
red tractor.
Yes.
And that's one it's called hydrostatic. You don't have to shift it and let clutches out.
If you say so.
Yes,
Okay.
push and go. So the other thing we have in common is music.
Yes.
And you have probably played church music. Do you play the organ or just piano?
Just piano.
You've probably played that just about as long as I've been alive.
Well, there were a lot of people that were there. Shirley Bartlett, Donna Henslin, Betty, of course, was on the organ, and many other people. So I was never the church pianist.
Okay.
If I would play, it was usually to accompany myself while I would sing or accompany someone else.
So you were a director then?
Well, I was choir director for over 40 years. I don't even know how long. But those were wonderful years. And then it went into praise band, and then maybe that's where you're thinking I was playing. So then I would be one of the band members playing and singing at the same time. But
well, I remember coming into some performances you guys did. You and Mark Redfern did some powerful drama things.
yes, Ann Clickman and
Ann,
I.
yeah.
It was Ann. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was some really
And
pretty...
we did with numerous pastors. I think it started with Pastor Doug.
Ah.
And then when Pastor Steve became Jesus during some of the dramas we did, that's when we sort of hit our stride there. And we would have the performances for Saturday night and Sunday night.
Yeah, I remember
And-
that. We would come in
And a
because,
lot of people would come and
well, it was unique and different and very well done.
well, thank
Very
you.
well done.
We put a lot of time into it, and it got to be really detailed. And so I would be the musical director, and Anne would be the drama director. And so we would have about 24, 28 people in costume.
Yeah, it was impressive.
Well, thank you. And it was a blessing, and then everything has its time, and then people would move, and you would lose certain people, and
Those
it
are
just wasn't
seasons of
easy
life.
Seasons of life. I
Seasons
know.
of life. But the other thing that you are very, very effective at is VBS story time. And my kids, along with half of the kids in Dodge County,
Isn't it astounding?
know Miss Kay's story time.
Oh, it's astounding. Well, I started earlier on than that, but then when Lori Jorgensen became the head honcho of VBS down there, it was, if her mother Mary was there, they would have been working on it together, you know. And Lori is so skilled, and I always tell everybody that it was the best VBS anywhere because it was like Disney North.
Yes.
Lori was so skilled with all of the decorations and making it fun.
Our shop became the place where Lori often would come out and tell Jim, okay, I got this idea,
You bet.
you know, and between
Yeah.
him and Rick,
Jim or Rick,
yeah,
yeah.
they could come up with a
And
plan.
I
And,
know that she had the best brothers in the world.
But you had, in your story place, you had the environment came alive. You guys walked on water. Literally.
We did.
Literally.
I know. We came. Well, did you help that one year when I was in tears just before VBS started? Because we didn't realize making this mixture out of 24 pounds of cornstarch was going to be physically almost impossible for women to do.
Yes.
And weren't you one of the
I think
people
I was
in,
one of the ones
in
in
there?
there.
And the men in all of their wisdom would say, yeah, just get a power drill. And, you know, well, it became like concrete the more you worked with it. And you had to get in there with your hands. And
But that's how you
but
could walk
walking
on water. Yes, it was
So,
amazing.
And then eventually they did repeat that lesson. And Anna Redfern and I, she was the one that always helped me get these things ready for the next day for the story. We had men do it. We had 4 men, including Pastor John there, with their hands, and they, because they brought their tool, they were going to
Yep.
tell us how it should be done, and they found out the lesson. But I've had adults now come, and they were children when they came, and they would say their favorite one was that. That was so exciting.
But I think what you did is you took Jesus' words and made it come alive in something that they could identify with. And when we take Jesus' words and bring it to life and involve ourselves in it, you had those kids in all situations, in a cave, lights. I mean, it made it come alive. And we can read the Bible all day, but when it comes alive, it changes our
I
hearts.
guess this is what God meant for me to do, and what an honor it has been for me to do it for these 25 coming up years here. And I've had mothers come and say that the kids would come home and say that I made the Bible come alive.
Yep.
And I thought, well, Lord, I guess I'm going to just keep doing this. And as it turns out, I am 84 now. And coming up next year, I believe that I'm still going to be teaching that. And I have the strength to do it. And I have the joy in my heart to do it. I love it. Absolutely. It's a delight to me. And I just thank God that I've had the privilege of it. And to see so many children make a decision for Christ. Marcia keeps track, and she says over 1,000 kids have made decisions either for salvation or assurance. And
it's not
just
something big
and
you did.
It's not, and it's
no.
not me anyway.
Yeah.
I'm an organized person, and I like to laugh and be silly, and just get down right with the kids on their level.
Well, and fact that you love them is not lost.
I
It's not
love
lost
them
on
so,
them.
I know. And not having grandkids of my own, so I have hundreds of grandchildren.
Adopted. Yep.
Adopted grandchildren, heart grandchildren.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And this year they are going to try, I think maybe it's this Jonah story again, and we did it twice before, where we have this giant big fish in the middle of the room that we blow up with this hideous fan that I have downstairs. Somehow I kept it, and I would love to throw it away, but I keep thinking, what if we need
What
it
if
for
we need it
another
again?
fish? And I don't know if Anna and I have the strength to do it, but let's just hope all the leaders can crawl inside if that's what
Yes.
we're supposed to do. I don't know. But
Well, this has been a wonderful visit, and thank you for sharing your heart.
well, thank you very much. I appreciate that.